Okay, so today we're diving into Daniel Defoe's incredible novel, Moll, Flanders. And yeah, it was written way back in the 18th century, but at its heart, this is a raw, timeless, and just absolutely gripping story about what it takes to survive when the whole world is against you. And this quote, "This is it. This is the whole motivation for our main character, Moll Flanders." I mean, who doesn't get that, right? The want, the need for security, for respect, for a better life. It sounds so simple, but for Moll, getting there is going to be anything but. And that really sets up the big question of the book. What do you do when every single door is slammed in your face? How far are you willing to go? What lines are you willing to cross just to survive? This one single conflict, it's going to define everything about Moll's life. All right, so let's start at the very beginning. And for Moll, talk about a rough start. Her life begins in the worst place imaginable, Newgate Prison. She's born to a convicted felon, grows up an orphan, no money, no family, no connections. She literally starts with less than nothing. And you gotta understand the world she was born into. Back in 18th century England, your birth pretty much decided your entire life. If you were born poor, especially as a woman, that dream of a respectable life was basically impossible. Society had these massive walls built up, and Moll was born on the outside, looking in. So what's a woman with no options supposed to do? Well, she turns to the one tool she has, marriage. But forget love and romance, okay? For Moll, this is pure business. It's a transaction. It's her only shot at climbing the social ladder in a world that's given her no other rungs to grab. And she's got a whole strategy for it, almost like a corporate playbook. It's brutally simple. Find a man with cash, lock it down through marriage, and if that plan goes south, well, you just run it again. You can just feel the pragmatism, right? And, a little bit of the desperation creeping in. But this whole transactional approach, it doesn't exactly lead to a happy ending. In fact, it leads to total chaos. And then comes one of the biggest, most shocking twists in the book. She moves to America, marries a plantation owner, and then finds out years later that he's actually her long-lost brother. This isn't just an oops moment. It shows just how morally tangled her life has become in this mad dash to survive. Okay, so after all that, where do you go from there? From Moll, the answer is down. Failed marriages, no money, absolute ruin. She's backed into a corner, and that's when survival just completely takes over. Morality, that becomes a luxury she just can't afford anymore. So she turns to a life of crime. Now look, this didn't happen overnight. It was a slow slide. A slippery slope. It starts with those early struggles, then the financial disaster, and then that first opportunistic theft. Before she knows it, years have gone by, and she's become one of London's most successful thieves. Until, well, her luck finally runs out. And here's the crazy irony of it all. As a criminal, she finally gets everything she ever wanted. The money, the fine clothes, the security, or so she thinks. But the cost? Her peace of mind. She is living in constant, gut-wrenching fear of being caught. So yeah, she escaped the prison of poverty, but now she's locked in a new psychological prison of her own making. Eventually, she does get caught. And where does she end up? Right back where her life started, Newgate Prison. But this time, something's different. She's facing the end, and it forces her to really, truly look at her life. And it's here, in this literal prison, that she finally starts to find a different kind of freedom. And the change in her is just massive. You can really see it when you compare her two lives. On one hand, you've got the life of crime. Yeah, she was wealthy, but it was all built on lies, and she was terrified all the time. Then there's the life after she repents. It's about being honest, working hard, and for the first time, feeling peaceful. She trades all that stolen wealth for something you just can't buy. So, her punishment is to be shipped off to the American colonies. You'd think that's the end. But for Moll, it's actually a new beginning. Over in America, away from that rigid English class system, she gets a real second chance. She even reunites with one of her former husbands, and together, through sheer hard work, they finally build that respectable life she's been chasing all along. So that's her story. But the big question is, why are we still so fascinated by this book 300 years later? Well, it's because her story is just packed with these powerful, timeless ideas that still hit home for us today. Think about it. You've got crime and repentance, the raw fight to just survive, the dream of climbing the social ladder, and even this early idea of female independence. And at the center of it all is this constant moral gray area. You might not agree with what she does, but man, you can understand why she does it. And it's not just the themes. The book itself was a total game changer. This was one of the first novels ever written in English, and Dafoe wrote it to feel like a real autobiography, like you'd found someone's secret diary. And the star of that diary? Moll. She was one of the first female characters in literature who wasn't just good or bad. She was complicated. She was real. You know what's really brilliant about how Dafoe wrote this? He never tells you what to think. He doesn't wag his finger and say, Moll was bad. Nope. He just lays out her story, her choices, her reasons, and then he steps back and lets you be the judge. It's incredibly thought-provoking. Which leaves us with a million-dollar question that people have been debating for centuries. Was Moll Flanders a victim, a product of a harsh society that gave her no other choice? Or was she a master of her own fate, a resourceful and determined woman who made her own decisions, for better or for worse? The answer is probably somewhere in the middle, and that's exactly what makes her story so unforgettable.